And some of y'all, well, you know who Genghis Khan is. He's one of the most famous tyrants of the world. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that he was actually into peace, which is strange. The guy literally murdered his own brother. But his favorite general literally never fought a battle. I want you to think about that. His favorite general never fought a battle. And, well, nor did his troops. See, conserving human life was extremely important, especially when you've got a traveling society. You're going from one place to another. You got to conserve your manpower for as many battles as possible. Where did I put my tobaccos? And now Genghis Khan, he had quite a family lineage too, didn't he? I mean, we don't usually hear a whole lot about Kublai Khan, but I remember we learned a little bit when I was in grade school. Now, for somebody to be a general, to have never fought in a battle, that's quite prolific, folks. He'd never fought in a battle. Even as a foot soldier, even as an infantryman, he'd never fought a battle, but he was Genghis Khan's top general. Well, he wasn't the top general. There was several generals who were able to take over quite a bit, but they did so by force, and Genghis Khan was not happy with them. Now, the mentality that Genghis Khan brought to his people, and especially to his own family, you can see later on in his son and his grandson, and further on down the family lineage. They worshipped intelligence, basically. If you could figure out a way to fight the battle without killing anybody, if you can kill 0 people, you have done a great thing. It's not just a matter of being able to take it over and, there's less people there, so now it's yours. It was also the measure of a person's humanity. Now, there's a couple of different ways of thinking. Let's use the Chinese idea for old age versus the Japanese idea for old age. For the Chinese, it's not glorious to die for your family. It's glorious to live as long as possible and help to guide your family and help them to be prosperous. Now, for the Japanese, old age is not seen as the same thing, or culturally the same thing. For Chinese people to adopt and adapt a lot of the thinking of Genghis Khan, even thousands of years later. Well, not thousands of years later. I'm sorry for saying that. Well, I found my tobacco, and now I cannot find my lighter. Boy, oh boy, am I a productive feller, ain't I? I mean, all the stuff that I've been going through, even with some real nasty people doing some real nasty things to people I care about, including killing them. I haven't killed anybody. I've spoken out about it every step of the way, and the 2 occasions where I had to do desperate things, well, on those 2 occasions, I did threaten. I absolutely did. I wanted to make sure that Danica Garner was safe, and Rose M. Kelly was safe, and Alicia Bollinger was safe, and a whole lot more people were safe. Now, that wasn't going to happen as long as I wasn't being heard. And it's still not going to happen until I am heard. For those people who told me that they were threatened, that their lives were threatened, that their families were threatened, you guys expect me to be happy about that. You expect me to say thank you. You expect me to get violent with others. Your suggestions are violent. Your, I would do this and I would do that, is violent. In reality, that's not what you'd do. In reality, you'd go to your mommy and daddy for help, and they would. Or you'd go to your husband for help, and he would. You would not be stuck alone in this situation. A lot of people tell me stuff like, man, if I was in your situation, I'd have killed myself a long time ago. Well, you know what? Lucky you, you'll never be able to be in my situation. You have too much actual support and family. My little sister, she's basically homeless because she doesn't know how to work together. Nobody in my family does. They're all about themselves. Now, some of them might care from time to time, momentarily. But then their drug addictions and their selfishness override everything. There were a lot of situations where my mother, people would tell me, man, I'm not going to be friends with you unless you go talk to your mom. Hey, man, you need to be friends with your mom. You know, you only get one mom. But my mom would always do the same thing in that scenario. She would always take advantage of me. And not just me. My mom likes to play drama head games, just like Jamie Curtis. Except my mom found a real idiot in Scott Wade. Now, what does this all have to do with Genghis Khan? Well, there was a movie clip thing when I woke up this morning, and as the guy is dying, it's supposed to be one of Genghis Khan's grandsons, right? They've invaded Russia, and this guy's got memory loss issues, and he finally dies on the battlefield, but he was given this thing by Genghis Khan's grandson that makes it so that you can pass through the enemy army untouched. So he tells Genghis Khan's grandson he doesn't want it, and asks Genghis Khan's grandson to take it back. And the whole thing from the beginning is that Genghis Khan's grandson wanted these people to bow, and this Russian said that they want Genghis Khan's grandson to bow. End of the movie is the Russian guy is dying. Genghis Khan's grandson kneels down to pick that up. The Russian says, I told you I'd make you kneel. And instead of chopping his head off and cutting him into little pieces, Genghis Khan's grandson said, you know, if this man had been one of my soldiers, he'd have been my most trusted. Well, I can see that. I can see that in a family lineage. I can see how a Hollywood writer would want to write that part into the movie. I can see how a foreign writer would want to write that into a movie. Most often we're bombarded with violence. That's what we get. We get violence thrown in our face all day, every day to keep us fucking paranoid. We're constantly telling each other what horrible people everybody else is. That's one of the worst things over well, anywhere in Chapel, Nebraska. It doesn't matter if it's Wendell McPhee's, Sandy Fromm's, Laura Nelson's store, which is called Nettie's Treasures. People in small towns don't got nothing to do but alcohol, drugs, make babies, and talk shit about everyone else. That's how small towns work. But it's not just small towns that work that way. The media works that way. The government works that way. It's propaganda. Did it come out of the mouth of someone popular? Is someone popular repeating the rumors? People's excuse is to send me on. No, that's abuse. To send us on to somewhere else where we will be victimized into moving again, where we will be victimized into moving again and again and again. This cannot be tolerated. I'm trying my best to fight this war without killing anyone. But there seems to be an awful lot of people who want to be killed. There seems to be a lot of people who want to deny basic human rights to human beings. There seems to be a lot of people who put on a badge and put on a gun just so they can shoot somebody like me. Now, the nearest thing I have to defend myself with is a bow. Like bow and arrows. And I can guarantee you, just like those of you who say that if someone did this or someone did that, that you'd shoot them, you don't carry. You don't open carry and you don't concealed carry. So how? How are you going to do that? Use your brain. Use your brain. Instead of thinking about killing people, think, all right, if I wasn't thinking about killing people, what ideas could I come up with? When you remove violence as an answer, you come up with actual solutions. The problem is, just because you have actual solutions doesn't mean that violent-minded people aren't in control. It doesn't mean that violent-minded people are not popular. Genghis Khan's favorite general wasn't necessarily his greatest general, unless you consider the fact that he didn't lose any men to battle. There was going to be diseases. That's going to happen. You're going to have work accidents where somebody accidentally smacks into somebody else with an axe or a pick or something and they get an infection. And back then there weren't no antibiotics. So as much as I'd like to spread the rumor that that man didn't lose a single man, that's not true. There's no way that it's true. But the fact that Genghis Khan actually made mention of him on multiple occasions. Now, this is argued by historians. Oh, well, this is written by people years after the fact who weren't there, or people who were there, but, it was 30 years later, so they don't know. Their memories are not quite what they could be. And you know what? Memories are a lot different based on nostalgia and memory, too. I mean, not the memory of the actual situation, but the memory of the person themselves. Well, I'm going through all this abuse, and I had friends who promised to help me, and they just procrastinated. And the longer they procrastinated, the more abuse I had to go through, and the more likely it was that my predators were going to get away. And they kept promising until the last minute. There's always some reason they can't keep their word. For most of them, it's drugs and alcohol. Now, when you're a druggie or an alcoholic who lives in a house, you have rights. Out on the streets, you don't have any rights. It's just assumed that you're on drugs and alcohol, and it's compounded by the fact that the police run around telling people that we're on drugs and alcohol. And this is standard procedure nationwide. If they tell the general public that homeless people are a certain this or that the general public is afraid of, and they spread that fear-mongering, yeah, what do you expect the average American to think and to do? The average American is told to stay away from those people. Those people will touch your kids. In reality, it's the parents 80% of the time touching them kids. We've also come to realize in about the last 20 years or so that there's a lot of female predators, a lot of them, that we're turning a blind eye to female predators, that we're still doing it. We're giving them slaps on the wrist, we're giving them probation, if that. Instead of telling the girl, hey, poor girl, it sucks that you got molested. Do you tell that to the boy? Instead of telling that girl that or telling a boy that, why don't you, I don't know, do the right thing? They're coming to you for help. They're trying to tell you what's going on and you can't stop talking about yourself. And then you want to repeatedly interrupt them. I don't know how we can help. Well, you can start by not fucking constantly interrupting, because after fucking 10, 15 times of getting interrupted like that and me listening to your family stuff, and you know what? I try to be as supportive as I can in those conversations, and you can hear these people are going out of their way to be as non-supportive as possible, to make every excuse, to continue to interrupt me. And then, if I interrupt them, I feel like an asshole. But then again, they don't feel bad about interrupting me. Their words about my situation are more important than my actual experience. Their beliefs based on slander are not based on evidence. They're not based on this evidence or any of the evidence down there. Like, somebody could try pretending that I'm threatening them with a bow, but it's a takedown bow. Cops here say they got a 2 to 3 minute response time. So it would take me, with my back screwed up, probably about 10 to 15 minutes to string it, use it, and unstring it. And that's also considering the fact that I gotta unbury it. It's under there somewhere. This briefcase right here is fucking huge. It's full of stuff. And before I can actually get that briefcase into a position where I can slide it out of there to even get to any of the stuff that's underneath, well, lo and behold, I gotta move all of this. I gotta find a place for it where it's not unsightly, because unsightliness is something that's for surely gotten us in trouble before. By us, I don't mean me and my multiple personalities. I know a lot of y'all like to make jokes like that. It's hilarious. Well, it's really not. You want to talk about making fun of somebody with disabilities, because Chris Rock made one joke. It wasn't even malicious. But you get to see the maliciousness that I take from people. Because I am disabled and I dare to speak out. I dare to try to find a way without violence in a world where everybody wants to think that watching Terminator makes that morally right. Vigilantism is what we're taught we should do in the United States. Really? Are you finding out the truth? Or are you just witch hunting? Anyway, I was up until the butt crack early, having a fucking severe panic attack. I mean, no matter what, nothing lines up. I'm sick of fucking getting blown off. I am. I get blown off because there is no advocate there. That's why I get blown off. That's why I get talked over. That's why I get turned down. Everywhere I go, I have to deal with this. I have to deal with this abuse for the rest of my life because my supposed friends were too cowardly to tell the truth and then wanted to get angry at me when I recorded that and posted it up for the world to hear. You can't help somebody by treating them like shit when they're being abused. No, getting abusive back at them is definitely an option. But when they want help, I'm not a coward. So even the ones that all these years still ain't done shit aren't fighting for my rights. They only care about themselves. They only care about their situation. Why do I keep fighting for their rights? Self-preservation. These people are in desperate situations. I understand self-preservation. All of you do. Natalie didn't want to get in trouble with her family. The truth would have fucked up her family dynamics. She didn't care if it fucked up mine. She she didn't care that it prevented me from seeing my older brother. Prevented me from being even allowed to defend myself against these people. Physically, I've been incapable of that for years. But then that makes me easy to victimize, and these guys want to feel tough, don't they? Well, Sean can't physically defend himself, so it's okay if I physically rough him up, ain't it? No, it's not okay, you pieces of shit. This is not okay. And all these people who said that they cared about me proved that they didn't care. They didn't care what people did to me. They didn't care to go in and put a stop to it. And for most of these people, their reason why is up. Miss Peaches is a fucking drug dealer. I'm not mad at her for being a drug dealer, though. Blaine McCrelius, he's a drug dealer. I'm not mad at him for being a drug dealer, though. That's one of the problems that you encounter when you got to deal with the streets. You got to deal with the fact that the people in houses selling the street people the drugs to begin with, they get to tell the homeless people what to think and what to feel. Many of those homeless people are going to listen to it because they want the drugs. And that's how it works. I should have been allowed to defend myself. I should have been allowed to go to my court dates, and I should have had an actual public defender, but I didn't. Meanwhile, all of them did shit that they know to be illegal. And all of them went out of their way to ignore the crimes against me, forcing me into a desperate situation. I wanted people to leave me the fuck alone. I also wanted people to stop threatening the people who were offering to help me. I wanted the cops to do their fucking jobs for once, but they will not do it for a homeless person. You want to project all of your violence and hatred onto me and pretend that I'm some sort of fucking monster. No, I did things in desperation and have to do these things in desperation. Because these cops are going out of their goddamn way to do jack shit. All of them nationwide for us homeless people. Fuck the police. This shit is not okay. Anyway, I gotta go down to the Starbucks. Obviously, the cops are punk ass bitches here. If they do come talk to me, well, it'll probably to be assholes and retaliate for speaking up. Now, these cops ain't done nothing real terribly yet. Matter of fact, Logan and Shayna both said those cops were real nice to them. One of them cops claimed that guy that was next to our vehicle with a rock, one of them cops claimed that they hooked him up with a tent and some clothes and stuff. I wasn't there. I can't verify it. I'm not just going to take his word because he's got a badge. See, that's one of the issues that I had from the very start with everybody. They kept on telling me, Sean, you're the most honest person I know. I trust you. I trust you. Well, I don't want you to trust me. I want you to look at the evidence. All of it. Not just the slander. Each one of these people wants to hide in shame because they know each and every one of them, their part of the story is a true story that I told. And they could have simply verified that if they'd have just told the truth from the very start instead of being cowards. But I can't blame that on myself. Do you know why? I didn't make them cowards. I take responsibility for my actions, but I also hold you responsible for yours. All it takes for tyranny to thrive is for you to look the other way. Martin Niemöller wrote a poem that's pretty famous. It's called When They Came. I recommend reading that poem. People are dead, folks. For you guys, this is entertainment. You want to play like I'm some sort of schizophrenic. My older brother wanted to, as his excuse for being a piece of crap to me, his losses. We know the same people. We were homeless on the same streets. Christine Buhit, the conversation between her and I shows that yes, her Facebook was used by me at her request, and she took it away when she was having a fucking relapse, which just ain't cool. She said she was going to try to get a hold of Josh Hughes, but she hasn't been able to get a hold of him, and I already knew that wasn't going to work. Josh Hughes had gotten a hold of me after Natalie died. He wanted a wingman in a video game. Cool, I could do that. Except I really needed his computer skills and I needed him to speak up. You know, when I got kicked out of my shop because of him, his actions. Now, those of you who want to say, oh, well, you shouldn't have let him in there. Hindsight is 2020. Ultimately, it wasn't my decision to let him in there that got us kicked out. It was his decision not to follow the rules. Now, what's to say that he would have followed the rules if I'd have told him no? He probably would not have moved in his couch, but if he felt desperate enough, yeah. What's to stop him from going out there and trying to plug in and play his video games? Now, when I moved out of there, I didn't throw all of his stuff away like I should have. Instead, I got a storage unit. And that was around the time I got my teeth yanked. Now, instead of getting violent with him, I put his stuff in my storage unit. When I couldn't afford the storage unit anymore, I donated all the computers that I had to him. And one of the businesses had donated, there was, I don't know, 2 boxes maybe, completely full of ThinkPads. And that's because Boulder was upgrading, everything was being upgraded. Everybody wanted to see the new rich people stuff. They didn't want to see a ThinkPad. They wanted to see something prettier, like an Apple. All right. It's more sleek, it's more streamlined, it's more expensive, and the problem is that people are dying. I've fought plenty of battles. I could not possibly be Genghis Khan's favorite general. I've been in a lot of fights. I've never killed anybody, though. Not intentionally, anyway. There are 3 people that I do hold myself responsible for their deaths. One of them is Christopher Weaver Jr. When he was born, I knew that his mom was crazy. I knew that I was filthy. I knew that my spot that I slept in was filthy, and sometimes people used it as people use any part of the city as a bathroom when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they're leaving the bar. Anyway, she absolutely insisted on shoving the baby into my arms, and if I hadn't grabbed the baby, she would have dropped him. So he got an infection and he died. And I don't know if it was from me or if it was from one of the other nasty people handling that child, but obviously that's not healthy. I came to see the baby, but I didn't have access to a shower. It's not like I had access to a laundry machine and the money to use it. Another one is Alexis Valentine. I didn't know her last name until she was dead. And It doesn't have an E on the end, so I was saying Alexis Valentin. That's Ventus's sister. He's the one that Star Mejia was having sex with when she came down to help me, and then it was all about Ventus. I didn't even exist most of the time there. Anyway, my phone's about to die, so I gotta go down there, charge up my stuff, and make a phone call to the DA victims advocate lady.